if you think of a swim, you've trained since from August all the way until March for, on average, a 1 minute performance. And if you're really good, you get to repeat that 1 minute performance in finals. There are a million things that can go wrong with that particular performance. And there's a lot that goes on under the surface. I think what I realized is if you don't bring the right emotional and mental state to the blocks, the training hasn't mattered. And one of the best ways to create that right emotional and mental state is to feel like you're part of a group that inspires you to be your best.
Welcome to the Captains and Coaches podcast. We explore the art and science of leadership through the lens of athletics and beyond. I'm your host, Tex McColgan, and today we visit the Rocky Top, University of Tennessee, to explore the currents of excellence that shape extraordinary leaders. We're making waves with head coach Matt Kredich, the swimming powerhouse behind the University of Tennessee's remarkable NCAA and Olympic legacy. Matt's journey isn't just about championships and medals, though his teams have accumulated plenty. It's about creating a culture where athletes don't just swim in their own lanes, but ride the tide of collaborative purpose together. From his battle with cancer to his evolution as a coach, Matt has learned the most powerful strokes aren't always in the water, but in the human connections that propel us forward. With that, let's hand it off to Matt to help us raise the game. Ready, and we're ready. On location, Knoxville, Tennessee, Coach Matt Kredich. How are we doing, sir?
Great. Thanks
Doing
for having
great.
me on the podcast.
I'm excited. You've had great success this year. Fortunate that we were able to connect in January. Brett Bartholomew, Art of Coaching. You brought him in to assess the culture and provide tools for your team to finish strong throughout the season. They were able to do just so.
Yeah, we just finished the NCAA championship, so our season begins in August and ends in end of March. So it's a long season. And we started working with Brett a few years ago and have learned that the best time to do the work that we do with him is uh, we usually do a call and an exercise midway through the season,
Mm-hmm.
but January is really critical because there's a lot of water under the bridge at that point, uh, and we have gotten to know each other really well. We've established some patterns, and some of those patterns are good, and some of them aren't. We're about to head into the most pressure-packed part of the season. So our SEC championships in February, national championships in March, and that's when communication, culture, and vision have to be, I think, the most clear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also January is when the most we're at our probably most fatigued, while the finish line is still kind of a ways away. So that's when you start to see the breaks and the chinks in the armor. And so what we were able to do and kind of rounding each other up and thinking about culture and maybe acquiring some tools for refining and elevating the culture and communication, like that was really well timed and really helped us quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And how long you've been coaching swimming?
Whew, I started in 1988, so however long
1988.
that is, yeah.
However long it is, I play defense lacrosse. I don't do math. So, at what phase and stage in your career did you start to see, okay, during the season, we need to either revisit, reinvest, or adjust the culture to maintain a strong finish?
I think, I mean, every season is one rep, and there are so many inputs into that rep. So at the end of the season, I've always looked back and evaluated. And I'd say probably for the first 10 years, the main thing I evaluated was how do we train? Because I
Mhm.
thought it was all about the training, the stresses you put on, the way we're trying to swim faster. And I think for the next 10 years, I started paying a lot more, started seeing examples in those previous 10 years of where the training I thought wasn't the issue. There's something else.
Mhm.
And that something else, when things didn't go well or when they did, was that we either had a phenomenal culture that was able to maybe kind of smooth over some of the mistakes I had made, or we had a corrosive culture, or elements of a culture that was corrosive, um, and that would almost negate any good decisions that I made in training.
Hmm. And
So the past 10 years, I've put a whole lot more emphasis on making sure the culture is right. Because if you think of a swim, you've trained since from August all the way until March for, on average, a 1 minute performance. And if you're really good, you get to repeat that 1 minute performance in finals. There are a million things that can go wrong with that particular performance. And there's also th- there's it and there's a lot that goes on under the surface
hmm
as well. Do you want me to change that?
that's okay.
Okay.
It's athletes being athletes out
All right.
there.
So I think what I realized is if you don't bring the right emotional and mental state to the blocks, the training hasn't mattered. And one of the best ways to create that right emotional and mental state is to feel like you're part of a group that inspires you to be your best. So instead of just focusing entirely on yourself and looking for threats, some of
Oh
which might
yeah.
be in your own team, you take comfort in the fact that you are part of a really powerful organization with really high standards that has continually challenged you to be your best. So you're used to associating yourself with, for us, Tennessee Swimming. And you know that Tennessee Swimming inspires me. Just the thought of it inspires me, because of the experiences I've had, because of who I know I am when I feel like I'm representing Tennessee Swimming. So it's
Hmm.
almost like this. It's a it's a superhero's cape that you get to put on when you put on the Tennessee cap, if we've done it right.
Hmm.
And that has a way of helping, again, smooth over what might be, a missed week of training in January for sickness, or some issues with a boyfriend or girlfriend or at home that have bothered you. But now, if you can bring yourself to the moment and you feel good about your team, it's those states, those emotional and mental states, can emerge when you want them.
Yeah, and it's excellent that a coach is thinking about that to then build those walls and barriers. Sometimes they happen naturally with teams. I'm sure you had groups that just clicked,
Yeah.
and other times where you doing your darndest and there's still some form of conflict within there. Culture killers, envy, resentment, entitlement, something where it was boiling underneath, it wasn't communicated up to you, and then you didn't catch it until that snake or dragon was too big.
Yeah, and sometimes that snake or dragon is operating, and I may not catch it until a couple of months afterwards because it was below the surface.
Hmm.
Problem with that, I think I've learned this over the 30 plus years I've coached, is um, it's a mistake for me to think that my mistake was missing what was going on. Like, I'll never know everything
Right.
that was going on. The where the whatever that issue was, where it spread, was within the culture of the team, which I'm certainly a part of, but not everybody knows about it. And so the team ethos let that let that happen, let it
Hmm.
fester, grow, and so on. And so it's, even if I'm too far downstream to have done anything about it, and or even if I can see it and maybe do something about it, that's not as powerful as the team being able to take care of it,
Hmm.
or the team recognizing when that pattern emerges and having an answer for it.
And how are you allowing that team to operate? Do you have team captains, or do leaders step into a captain role? Are they assigned that name, title, or they just take charge?
We've tried it a number of different ways, and I think where we're most comfortable now as a staff is allowing the leadership to emerge organically. And
Hmm.
that doesn't mean we just sit back and watch. It means that, number one, we have the greatest team event in swimming is a relay. So you got four guys that are dependent on each other, um, and in swimming, it's not necessarily the norm, but it's not unusual to have a freshman on one of those relays. So we encourage our freshmen from the very beginning to see themselves as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe all that is for them at that point in their development is to have the understanding that their actions impact the team. That's it. Just have that awareness. For others who are used to leading, and many of them are, we ask them to look for opportunities to exert influence in a direction that they feel like the team needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
It may be just with the other freshmen. It may just be with one person. They're maybe not as comfortable trying to lead a senior. Um, but we want to give them permission to be leaders, because if you make them wait and then we need them on a relay, they have a sense of, well, I'm not fully here yet.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have a sense of ownership over the team and they have seen and understood that they have an impact, then that's an easier role for them to step into. And from that point on, I think we talk to each class each year. We pull them aside and talk to the class. I do this with individuals as well. Um, I think there are sort of growth stages that accompany the year you are in college.
Mm-hmm.
So senior year, most people are really focused on, okay, how can I have the biggest impact on this team possible? And so they're really all about the team.
Mm-hmm.
Junior year, they're starting to kind of look outward and they see, okay, after 2 years, I've been so impacted by the leaders on the team, usually the seniors, that I'm going to start watching those seniors, because that's kind of going to be me in a year. And so they start evaluating, and they also think, okay, well, I have done this twice. I know the landscape. I want to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's more of a hunger for it. The sophomore year is kind of a year of, okay, you're done doing things for the first time. Now turn back, look back at the people who follow you, and you're the closest to them. Help them navigate the challenges of freshman year better. So we try to send the message frequently that everyone has a leadership responsibility, and then we call out the instances of great leadership. And this is all, this is not necessarily in competition, although sometimes it is. Um, we call up those instances and celebrate them.
Timeout. Feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, actual training getting squeezed out by life's demands? The Old Bull program on Train Heroic was built for warriors like you. I create targeted 6-week training cycles that systematically address knee, hip, back, and shoulder health, the foundations that keep you moving when others break. No wasted time, no unnecessary complexity, just intelligent programming that adapts to your schedule and your body's needs. Each cycle manipulates key lifts to maximize results even when time is scarce, because old bulls don't stop training. We just train wiser. Whether you're managing old injuries or preventing new ones, this program keeps you powerful despite life's limitations. Start your 7-day free trial on Train Heroic by clicking the link in the show notes. The Old Bull program, because the world needs your strength. And now, back to the show. Ready, and ready. Yeah, that reinforcing, that helps to bring it home. And sometimes from a head coach or leadership position, you don't acknowledge some bad behaviors because you're so focused on the practice plan or the program we have to do today. So now how do you help action senior? And I like how you went senior, junior, sophomore down to freshman. How do you start to action those team members to then take care of those little things so then you can focus on the team energy, the practice plan, and accomplishing, because you're thinking from August, you're already thinking ahead to March.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, I mean, certainly working with Brett has helped the most. And we have coaches on our staff who are really skillful at coaching the individuals through those situations individually. Um, to us, the practice environment is really it's the maybe the most intensive expression of the culture of the team, because that's where we apply the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see a conflict that's not either addressed in a productive way or isn't seen through to completion, we try to coach, maybe pull the biggest lever. So maybe it's one person who we can say, hey, when this happened, if you had responded a little bit differently, I think that the group would have been impacted differently.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's a couple people that are butting heads, and call them both up and say, all right, let's resolve this. But I think systemically, it's really good to role play, um, to have some language around how to respond to somebody confronting you, and how to confront also,
Mm-hmm.
um, and to remind ourselves that conflict is a change creator and is necessary. Like, the sign of a healthy team is not you never have conflict. A healthy team is a team that can have conflict and work through it and be better at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they just need vocabulary, and other times they need permission. Um, and sometimes it's also can be more of a mandate. You guys got to solve this. This is corrosive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and putting those barriers in place or putting them in a room, they wouldn't have that conversation otherwise, and it becomes really corrosive.
Yeah, and that's kind of the locker room. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
locker room is where things can, um, where conflicts can escalate unfettered by an adult in the room. And again, that's where the culture is really important, because the leaders, the best leaders, will step forward, and when they hear something, they'll turn around and say, that's not how we address things here. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys need to work it out. And we we've tried having captains before, and I found that what that does, there's in soccer, the captain has a very specific role on the field,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no agreed upon specific role for a captain in swimming. It's not necessary for the competition. It's not necessary, period. And so what we found is that when you name a captain, you've also actively not named other captains. And that tends to make some really good leaders, situational leaders, move sort of back into the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And so situations like the locker room, somebody may have an answer for, a conflict that's happening, but they're thinking, I'm going to let the captain take care of it. And there's less urgency to let the culture take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've even seen that at the team level, the team dynamic of I'm not a senior or I'm not the captain and allow
Yeah,
that. And how I aim to get in front of that is leaders lead. It
that's right.
C on the chest doesn't matter at this stage. If you know what's right, let's empower you to say what's right. And like you said, they either don't have the tools, sometimes it's the confidence, or
Yeah,
they don't know how to, or they're worried about the social backlash within school. And and yeah, that ultimately the culture can help build and elevate to understand what is right and wrong. And when even if a captain starts acting wrong, do leaders, like real leaders on the team, then start to stand up for the cause, the fight, the team, and etc.
it takes a lot of strength to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do that. A lot of strength. And yeah, I think that's why it should be a constant, if not conversation, at least a frequently amplified theme, that our greatest performances are going to come out of a culture that's really healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
then have to define that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and often with youth, younger athletes, college, high school, there's a negativity bias, just a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
So how do you start to instill the idea of possibilities for your team and get them to start believing? Because that's a whole lot of beliefs and banners up on the wall in the pool here.
Having a growth mindset is really important, and that's one of the elements of our culture that we feel like is essential. And we don't necessarily um, we don't use that term all the time, but what we do is from the very beginning we talk about the importance of self-talk and group talk. So it's this is an old one, but it's really powerful. The statement "I can't" when you're faced with a challenge is really limiting. So people have heard that a lot of times, but acting on it is maybe less common. So when you hear it from a teammate, then that's one of the early and easy kind of role playing exercises we go through in the
Hmm.
beginning of the season is define a complaint. What's a complaint? It's identifying a problem without a solution. Um, what does negative talk sound like in a lane? Because they're down in the water and we can't always hear everything. So what does it sound like, and how are we going to address that? Because we it's easy to agree in a non-emotional situation. We're not going to complain, and we're not going to limit our possibilities. So we do talk early about how we address those things, and what the alternative
Hmm.
is really powerful. Instead of saying I can't, say, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling with this. Now you've opened yourself up to be encouraged. You've
Hmm.
opened yourself up. You've created some vulnerability rather than an absolute limit. And what's behind that statement is I'm really struggling, is this possibility that I know I can do it, but I'm just really struggling to do it right now.
Hmm.
And so that is a message that our staff tries to send, that there's always a way. We just have to find it. Some days it's really hard to find it, and you may not. But if you leave the pool thinking I just couldn't do it today, then you've put a limit on yourself. If the next part of that sentence, I couldn't do it today, but I'm gonna find a way. And if I were to go back again, maybe I would prepare differently. Maybe I would have eaten something different or eaten lunch. Maybe I would have slept differently. Like you can go back and say, but it's really helpful, I think, to say I just ran out of opportunities rather than I can't.
Hmm.
And so that kind of mindset, that is essentially what a growth mindset is. Or wasn't able to do it today, but I'm gonna freaking figure out how to do it the next time that comes up, or I'm gonna get better at it. I did get better at it. That you're always growing, you're always moving towards something, and there's no limit to how far you can go. You're just gonna be limited by time and opportunity.
Hmm.
And so I think we send that message pretty effectively and pretty powerfully. And it's uh it's the truth. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it than that's just the way things work. Because
Hmm.
when you do lift that governor off of I can't, I'm too tired, like I'm too sore, I'm too tired. When that's gone, then people do amazing things.
Hmm.
And especially when you have an environment of people who all believe the same thing and who want to do something for each other, the amazing happens.
Yeah. A joke with the high schoolers I work with, we don't say the C word. Can't.
Yes.
So, and then the providing an alternative, that's huge. So, like you mentioned, self-awareness for the freshman and the younger self, like that's self-leadership of you're just catching yourself say it, and you're catching yourself say it. Now you're catching yourself think it, and you have an alternative. Now I enter into sophomore year or seasoned freshman who's got some responsibility during meets. they hear somebody else say that, whether they're a senior all the way down to his classmates, then now it's social awareness. I hear it,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
have the confidence, self-management to call them out for it in a encouraging way versus uh, a negative sense.
Yeah.
So and it encourages them to call out other behaviors and teaches them how to call out other behaviors in a uplifting sense versus a just jump down their throat sense.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great point, that the little self-talk out loud that you can playfully say, like, this I can't do it. No, no, wait. We don't say can't. You haven't done it yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's playful,
Right.
but it's also, like you said, it's the act of correcting somebody. It's the act of kind of holding somebody accountable to an agreement that we have, that we don't talk that way. It does make it easier to call out maybe more challenging behaviors in a, whether it's playful way or less threatening way than just, stop doing that.
Yeah. And jumping at them, and then
Yeah.
within, and you got to help me how I guess swim works within team dynamics. We got a running clock, and multiple people are on and off the field. So some guys are getting a lot of time because they're the right matchup for this team. Other guys not so much. So there's a lot of shared time, and some guys they don't get a lot of playing time. Now, how do you manage leadership, the long season, and just give and take of meet time? How do meet times work? Where so yeah, walk us through that, and I have one follow up.
So in swimming, there's no regular season champion. So we have competitions through the year to learn about competition. There's no real, like, we want to win dual meets, and coaches are proud of their dual meet records, but you can go 0-10 in a season and then go win a national championship. It doesn't keep you from going to the national
Okay.
championship. Having said that, that it doesn't mean that meets aren't important, and we only have usually 4 opportunities to swim an event. So there are some people that don't get to swim. Where that has the biggest impact is on the the feeling of the individual that they can impact the end of season goal. So because the dual meets don't matter that much, we set our performance goals around end of the season. So conference championships and then national championships. And and we talked from the very beginning about all the ways that you can impact our results. So let's say we've got, at a conference meet, we've got 22 men scoring. Um, I use the example that a great teammate might help 22 men each score 2 more points than they would otherwise, by being inspiring, by being a great example, by helping, lifting people out of a funk. That's 44 points that one person has impacted for the team without swimming a stroke. And it's important for them to keep that in mind, because everyone goes through times in the season when they don't feel like they're performing at a level that's really helping the team. I mean, I think most people feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who aren't fast enough to get one of those 4 lanes very often start to withdraw, unless they feel like they're important, unless they feel like they have an impact. And as we get closer to the end of the season, we can send 22 guys to the conference meet, but we may have 30 on the team. The 8 men, or let's say 10 men, who are insecure that they don't feel like they have a sure spot on the team. As soon as one of them feels like, I'm not going to make it, there's a real danger of them withdrawing,
Mm-hmm.
giving up, losing motivation. And I don't mean giving up like stopping. I mean just in their minds starting to lose a sense of purpose. But if we've planted that seed early in the season, that everyone is responsible for the team's performance at the end of the season, because whoever the theoretical bottom guy on the roster is, if that guy is nipping at the heels of the 5 guys in front of him and making a couple of those guys nip at the heels of the 5 guys in front of them and so on, then that churn makes the bottom part of the team a lot better, which
Mm-hmm.
then works its way to the theoretical top. And it can just be one person who's the straw that stirs the drink. And if you have those people, then your team gets better, and time becomes your ally, because the more time that person is stirring the competitive juices, the more time that has to act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when that individual does get their moment, the whole team is also behind them to let it
Completely.
shine, and it just keeps this culture building and growing and strengthening it.
Yeah. And luckily in our sport, those people usually get their time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
So after our conference meet, we always come back home and have an invitational meet, and it's a pretty friendly environment. It's not competitive for the top spots, but it is, you get a chance to compete, to be as fast as you can be and maybe make NCAAs, but at least, finish your season swimming the best time. And so those guys do get, they feel the love from their teammates if they haven't made the conference team, if they're swimming here.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So now questioning into the age of college sports right now, where we have transfers and transfer portals and then roster limits. Like, how are you managing that in respect to the fears and the negativity, the closed mindsets, and the potential where things do go south?
So we had a massive roster contraction mandated by the SEC. So gone from 30, I think we had 34 men on the team this year, and we've got to get to 22 by next year.
Okay, I thought it was already in. So
So, 22 we can take to SEC championships,
okay.
but we had 30 some guys on the roster. Next year, we can only have 22 guys on the roster. We can still take them all to the conference meet, but it's 22. So now, like, we've had to decide, okay, where's knowing that we're always recruiting, we're always developing, but now this transfer portal is massive, and it's
Mm-hmm.
now filled with people who've been cut from other teams that um, who either they didn't want to carry those people, or the guys left on their own, or
Mm-hmm.
the women left on their own. The transfer portal is pretty. There's a lot of people in it right now, and so we had to decide what the minimum level of performance was for our team, and and we decided to leave somewhere between 2 and 4 spots for transfers to come in. So gave 18 guys assurances that they're on the team, and then there's still recruiting a couple people, but at least 2 spots for a transfer. So it's a really different looking team this year than we had this past year. 17 men who were on the team last year will not be on it this year, either through graduation um, or attrition, and we'll bring in probably uh, 9, 10, 10 new people. So that culture piece is really important. And one of the things that I've been working on with our staff and with Brett is to be able to define the culture in finer points than just it's good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
um, and have a way to evaluate the people coming onto our team in terms of those cultural elements. And that process of defining it first and then applying it to the way we're recruiting has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, I believe it. And then the leaders, the guys here, they can model it. So you've defined it, and then people are acting it out well. It's not just words that are. It's like some office where they write their mission and
And
it
then
doesn't go
leave it.
down.
Yeah.
Now you have models that are acting it, and then leaders that are shaping the new individuals, and then coaches there to help shape as well and reinforce when somebody does do well.
Yeah. And we also have those agreements in place with, so what we did was define it. Um, tell the team that there's, with a smaller roster, there's less room for failing in these cultural elements than there has been in the past. And so we're being held to a higher standard. But I also let them know, if you're on the team and you're coming back next year, then you've already demonstrated that these are your values,
Mm-hmm.
and that's awesome. And we want you to hold each other to those standards and values. So we have that agreement. They know that they're the keepers of the culture. And then when we bring new people in, we're able to have that agreement on the front end that this is these are the expectations, and we all have a responsibility to uphold those, including me. Like I'm
Yeah.
asking you to hold me accountable for my own behavior, the behavior of the staff, and then as a leader to hold everyone to that standard also.
Mm-hmm. And then, forgive my ignorance, is there, like the NFL, you have this amount of time to get your roster down. Come August, season starts, do you have any ramp up,
No,
or it's set at what time for next year?
really, from the first, technically you're counted on the roster the day of the first competition,
Okay.
but unlike the NFL, I mean, you can have guys on salary or on contract, right? And part of the contract probably changes as soon as you're not on the team. But for us, if you start the school year on any kind of a scholarship, you're on the roster. And so if it's 22 and we have 24 guys on scholarship, we're in violation.
Mm-hmm.
And the punishment for that is pretty significant. So we need to know our 22 by the first day of classes and practice.
Man.
And
And
and really July 1st, because that's when the financial aid agreements come in.
and in your coaching career, has there ever been a big shift and change like this in the past that just ruffled all the locker rooms up?
Nothing remotely close. Nothing remotely close.
Well, always growth and opportunity as a coach.
And it's a test,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I've been coaching a long time. I'm 59, and I I have watched coaches in other sports for a long time, like have a huge amount of admiration for coaches who have been really successful for a long period of time. Mike Krzyzewski, Jim Boeheim, Tony Bennett, um, and all three. Um, who else did it recently? Somebody even younger, but all those guys have said this isn't the sport that I thought it was, and I know that they're dealing with different situations than I am. They're paying guys a lot of money, and
Mm-hmm.
that comes with parents who are agents and agents who supersede parents, and I get it. I'm not faulting it, but I also, for me, watching those guys is a test. Like, am I still excited through these changes? And I would say I'm more excited than I've ever been, because okay, you change the rules of the game. That's an opportunity to shake things up, and the competition looks different, and people who are nimble and creative will be rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a staff that's nimble and creative, and a boss athletic department that's really nimble, really creative, really competitive. So it's really fun to be in the middle of it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good to hear. As
Yeah.
Brett would say, socially agile.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're ready. You're equipped
Yes.
for what's ahead. I do want to focus on your growth, and we had the opportunity to break bread literally
Yeah. Yeah.
at your
That's
home
right.
uh, when I visited last, and you've been through a lot of significant changes and growth. You were a swimmer at Duke, and then, I mean, when did you know you wanted to be a coach? Was it way back when you were an athlete?
Yes, to some extent. So the two of the most influential people in in my life were coaches. My I wanted to play basketball until my sophomore year in high school, had a really bad knee injury, and got pulled into the pool by my high school coach, who was a really close family friend, who knew that we went to the beach with him every summer, so he knew that I could swim.
Mm-hmm.
He just did, like, I wasn't good. He knew I wasn't good, but he just wanted people on the high school team. So uh, he helped challenge me and give me some structure at a time in my life when I really needed it. And then my college coach was an ex-Marine and just an amazing like biomechanist. Uh, he, he was very old school in a lot of different ways. He challenged me and embraced me my freshman year. My sophomore year, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and that year, and really the rest of my career, was defined by the the treatment, the effect that had on my body, and then the kind of the comeback. And he came. I was in the hospital like 60 days that year. He was in my hospital room every single day.
Wow.
He was coaching me through times when I really needed coaching. My parents were awesome. My team was awesome, and the feeling that I had, like that was what a team does for people. It
Mm-hmm.
gives you a sense of love and support that can be really life giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I just thought, wow, if I can have an effect on people where I inspire them and help them see the best in themselves, then I'd like to do that. So I thought I wanted to be a teacher and a high school coach, just like my high school coach. But as I was pursuing my teaching degree in student teaching, I was also able to start coaching. And I caught that bug. And in the day, I would be in an inner city classroom trying to make environmental science important to kids that had other, like, so many challenges in their life and I wasn't that skilled at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go to the pool, and for 2 hours, I'd get to coach people for whom swimming was really important. Like, they dug it. And it was easier for me, and it was easier to see success. And so I moved a little bit away from teaching, and then I got this great opportunity to be a volunteer assistant coach at Stanford, who is one of the all-time great swimming programs, was then, still is, um, and do that full time. And once I started doing that full time, it was on. I love the interaction with people. I love the fact that in the pool we can challenge people to push themselves to physical limits, emotional limits, mental limits, spiritual limits, like, every day. and
Yep.
and shape, and I know that's athletics, but to see it, I felt it in myself. To see it from the other side and to see the growth that happens is, to me, there's no greater purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm 1,000% with you, and believe that wholeheartedly, and then want to give back to the coaching community, especially at the high school level, because oftentimes you're the last line of defense.
Yeah.
There's no support at home. As soon as you get to professor, they don't care. Boss doesn't care. So teaching them these lessons and how to manage it. So failure when weightlifting, failure in the pool, or somebody outworked you, you didn't respond well. So teaching you how to manage these team dynamics, all this last line of defense.
Yeah, and it athletics is a lab for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And um the coach is the person who gets to guide somebody through that lab. I think the models that I had were never abusive, um, always somewhat curious, always somewhat playful, like really funny men who never took themselves seriously at all. Took the sport really seriously, but not themselves.
Right.
And that has a way of just helping people who are drifting in a lot of different directions get into line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so powerful.
Yeah. It goes the other way too, because I played multiple sports, so had very transactional coaches that
Yeah.
were not positive life forces. So fortunate to have then the life force to help understand. the dichotomy and not blame coach or blame sport for this. It's just that individual, like they're bringing their baggage to you, and you're this kid.
Yeah.
So, but there was good lights in my tunnels as well. So,
Yeah. And to me, it's heartbreaking and almost criminal to see people driven from the sport because the coaches are, because of the transactional nature of the way that the coach sees the coach athlete relationship. Like, you're here to make me look good, essentially.
hmm yeah, refer to coaching scars. So usually
Yeah.
when talking to people, they always, if I say that word, they have
Yeah.
Vietnam flashbacks to an experience with one of their coaches where it turned a negative relationship with sport or hard work or training, fitness, whatever it may be. It's in there. So,
And it stays with you.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so where when did, I guess, the vulnerability piece come into it? Because you had a lot of power, you had a lot of passion within the Stanford, and when did you start to learn, like, oh, there's the other side of this coin? When should I start listening and growing in that respect with my athletes?
I think I learned it in sort of drips, like here and there. And I I was Stanford for a year, assistant coach at Harvard for a year, and then I was hired to be a head coach when I was 25 or 26 at Brown University. And all of a sudden, so as I think as an assistant coach, it was really easy for me to be vulnerable and to, to kind of catch the um, catch people sort of on the way down
Mm-hmm.
and help them on the way up. When I became a head coach, I had this idea that I needed to be perfect, and so probably not a lot of vulnerability in front of the team
Mm-hmm.
for a while. Um, but with individuals, when I look back, I do feel like I um, had a lot of patience and was able to help people individually. But I think as a leader, I one guy that I coached from the '90s told me, he said, I always thought you had it figured out, but now that I'm your age, I realize you were faking it like like I have to. And I think I was faking it, but I actually did think too often that I had it figured out. And in some ways, that confidence is really powerful because nobody wants to follow a leader who is never confident. But in other ways, it was detrimental
Mm-hmm.
because I was slow to learn some things. I think as soon as I had kids, so that was around 1999, um, that is when I started thinking, oh, okay, there's these people that I'm coaching are what's coming not too far down the line. And so not too long ago, they were, this age. And of the children that I have that are just these miracles that I have in front of me. And I think uh, as I started dealing with people who I'd say in the early 2000s, I moved to the University of Richmond away from Ivy League schools. Ivy League schools self-select for people um, that are just really academically
Mm-hmm.
gifted and highly motivated. University of Richmond, same thing, but I was able to work with some people who had some differing abilities, disabilities, um, learning disabilities, and it was cool to see a wider range of people. And then when I got to Tennessee, I discovered, okay, I'm coaching people who are first generation college for whom it is, for some, it was really important to the family, for others, not that important. Coaching some people who are turning down Ivy League schools, and then a lot of people in between with different learning challenges, really different learning backgrounds, never would have, like, an elite education was not what they were looking for. They were looking for an elite swimming experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to get an elite education, and they're also, some of them, able to work their tail off through dyslexia or some other kind of learning disability. And for me, I had to become a lot more flexible, which meant that I needed to understand, I needed to put a lot more effort into being empathetic
Mm-hmm.
and learning more about different people from different backgrounds. And that was, it was kind of magical. Like I loved that growth process. And I think there was a vulnerability that came with that.
Yeah, yeah. Similar experience for myself. The town I started to coach, completely different from where I grew up. 50% of the high school that it was coaching at went to college. The rest would enter military or trade school, and then a whole different varying home life. And where I would come in with the tough, we got to bust tail, work hard attitude. These guys, they often needed a parent model. So my skill set was limited, and then started to really just unlock where, okay, I still want to make an impact. They don't need another dude just jumping all over them for this and that. So then it was, okay, understanding the social emotional growth and development that led me down a rabbit hole to understand, okay, where was a gap at 7, 9 years old in their development where they had a block, parents divorced, they moved, and they just missed that lesson. That's why they're acting out. So
Yes.
not taking it personally, they're looking for that lesson from a long time ago. And then again, this is where the last line of defense mindset came in, because yeah, their welder boss is not going to give a damn. So I
Yeah.
got to.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And the, I think the developmental process is so much easier to understand once you've been coaching somebody for multiple years. So
Hmm.
the 22-year-olds we have on our team are so different from the way they were when they were 18, and it's beautiful. But if you coach without that growth process in mind, then you may be more likely to take something personal when they start acting out, instead of thinking, okay, it's my job to understand this, not react to it.
Hmm. I got a lot here to cover. I know we're pushing our time here, so we'll fly through. Um, do you think about leaving a legacy on the sport of swimming? Like it's given you so much, and you've given back to the sport. And then, I mean, if we look at your bio on the Tennessee website, it's there's, I mean, 100 names there that have gone on, athletes that have gone on to have accomplishments. So, uh, is it more about those athletes? Is it more about the sport of swimming? Where do you feel your legacy lies here through Tennessee, or just reverberations?
Reverberations for sure. Like, I'm not really that interested in my legacy in the sport of swimming. Uh, and having said that, I care so deeply about swimming. I think it's an amazing sport. And it's somewhat under threat with the changing landscape right now. So I want to do whatever I can to save it for the sake of people to come, but not for the sake of my legacy. I just,
Mhm.
like, I'm in a position of where I have some power and responsibility, and so I feel an urge and an obligation to act. The I think the question of legacy is always one I've struggled with, because I heard somebody say maybe 15 years ago, like, it's the question, they were asked the question, how do you want to be remembered? And their answer was, I'm not even sure why I want to be remembered. And we all want to have some sense of significance, but I think if we act in a way, like if I act in a way so that I want people to remember me and I want to be significant in their lives, that's not really acting for them. It's not
Mhm.
really giving to them. So what I do want to do is treasure the opportunities that I have with people and make sure that I'm doing the best job I can to give them what's going to help them grow.
Mhm.
That's really satisfying to me. And if they don't remember it, I don't, that doesn't bother me. Um, they do. That's the thing, but that's not really what I'm looking for. I, I, I love the challenge of the moment with any athlete. And I love hearing what a 35-year-old says that the the 20-year-old version of themselves learn through being part of a great team experience.
Mm-hmm.
That makes the world a better place. That is, I think that's a legacy of swimming. It's a legacy of all of us, of our team, my coaching staff. It's if we can be a place that where excellence and love and goodness gets put out into the world and amplified through time, then that's awesome. I think that's maybe what I, I want to make sure that I don't waste my life. I want to make sure that the gifts that I have and that I have worked to create and that I was born with are not wasted.
Mm-hmm. And then in line with that, speaking to the next phase of the questions here, guidance for teenage athletes, for swimmers that are aspiring to be here in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, that have Tennessee, that they've fallen in love with the passion, the culture, the experience that they've witnessed in one way or another. How can you help set them up for success to continue to do what's good to get here in the future?
Well, I think never stop learning, and at the same time, take time to celebrate your successes. I think there's some pressures on high school people now that are unique to the time, and that's the sense that they're never good enough, and they've always got some unrealistic standard to live up to, and that's the wrong side of the coin to be looking at. The right side of the coin is that we're all in process, and we can all keep getting better,
Mm-hmm.
and that part's exciting. Doesn't mean you're not good enough. Good enough for now, and you're on your way to becoming better. And if you love that process and you can take the wins and be confident in those, then you'll end up you'll end up in a great place. There's no way to kind of microwave development, and so if you're a long way from being at the University of Tennessee, I'm not going to tell you how you can hurry it up. And if you're close, I'm not going to tell you you're almost there, because there's very little way that any of us can really predict rate of development, especially over a short time period. I think we can all embrace the characteristics that lead to success,
Mm-hmm.
and those are all within our control. It's hard work, great attitude, love of learning, um, being able to do things for others, like taking pride and joy in making other people around you better.
Being a good teammate versus
Be a
time
great teammate.
sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. So this leads to my fun questions here. So I'm going to lead off with, are Olympians born or are they made?
Well, I'm not going to give you an answer to that, because anybody who's an Olympian was always in process of becoming an Olympian. And if you want to be an Olympian, imagining that is can be really exciting. So, if you see yourself as a 28 Olympian that's in process of becoming a 28 Olympian, then once you do it, you'll look back and say, yeah, I was always on that path.
Yeah. The been fortunate to interview a lot of Olympians, and some it was a spark that came, and others they just knew. One of my favorites is Adam Nelson, who's Olympic gold medalist shot putter. And he's like, "There's no such thing as Olympic hopeful. Like, if you're a hopeful, you've already missed."
Right.
So,
Right. Give
y-
yourself permission to be one in the future.
yeah. Um, so I did a apprenticeship during a phase where my uh, mentor, he was leading Team Elite. So this is in 2014. I was a part of that. So he had 4 years with the group that went to 2016. I learned a lot about swimming. Also learned a lot about myself. As you mentioned, the pool allows you to learn emotion, physical, all mental toughness, all of it. I've also learned I have negative buoyancy,
Yeah, that's
and I'm
tough.
really good at fighting water and amongst other things. So what I have is an outline of 5 characteristics that lead to an elite swimmer, and I want to see your opinion on these.
Right.
So, walking through them here. Number one, what God blesses you with.
There's no getting around genetics. So, somebody who is, I think Michael Phelps is a really good example. Long torso, short legs. That creates a hydrodynamic profile that is really optimized for swimming. Long legs, short torso, you got some things to work against.
What about short torso, short legs?
Then you have a chance to be good underwater. That shape is actually pretty good underwater.
Okay. Overdeveloped glutes,
Overdeveloped
anterior
glutes,
pelvic tilt.
that creates a lot of drag and a lot of turbulent flow, and so that's a negative.
That's
Yeah,
me. So body positioning in the water.
it's maybe the most important thing. There are world-class swimmers who don't move a lot of weight in the weight room, but who can create a profile in the water that minimizes drag. And the nature of fluids, water being a really thick one, is that for every with a given amount of drag, for every 1 unit of uh, speed increase you get, the drag increases exponentially. So increases in speed come at, let's say you're going to put more power into the water to increase speed. That power needs to increase exponentially relative to the 1 unit that you're trying to increase in speed. Reducing drag is that can be a dynamic activity. So if you just change your body position a little bit to reduce drag, all of a sudden you can be a lot faster with the same uh, power input, energetic input into the water. So it's it's the most important piece
Mm-hmm.
of swimming fast.
Yeah, when I was with Coach Ruiz, the theme was high speed, low drag. Now I understand it.
Yes.
Next up is entry and exit in the water. When a hand enters the water, it leaves in the same spot.
Yeah, that's a good visual for the efficiency of an arm
With the
stroke.
freestyle in particular is the note.
Yeah.
So,
Um, that's a good goal to aim for. I think we teach swimming and think about swimming culturally too much, just arms and legs. It's like any athletic movement. It's a whole body, core driven movement. So entering the entering the water and getting in a good position. Um, if your arm stays there, then the focus should become on what the top side is doing, and that kind of vaulting. Think of it as like a pole vaulter. You plant and then vault your body over the top with the momentum of the recovery, but that's a whole body movement.
mm-hmm.
The only way that can really truly happen is if the kick is creating a lot more propulsion. So I think people have focused a lot on distance per stroke. That's almost like the maximum you can get from distance per stroke. But you can contort yourself a little bit trying to follow that model
Mm-hmm.
and burn the legs and not get a lot of tempo or speed. So it's a nice image, but I don't think in reality it's the thing to aim for.
All right. Then next is kinesthetic awareness. So coachability,
Yeah.
making those adjustments.
I think sometimes, I mean, that's really, really important. And there's so much sensory input in swimming, both the kinesthetic awareness independent of the water and then kinesthetic awareness within the water. The feeling of a coordinated stroke cycle, the feeling of the flow of water being fast versus drag being high. Um, and a lot of times by trying to be too prescriptive with what we as coaches want to see, we take we almost kill the kinesthetic awareness. We devalue it. And so I think that's one of the things that we as coaches can do, and probably not just in swimming, is let feel, athletic feel, rhythmic feel, feeling of being connected, let that dictate things more than what we see and can break down mechanistically as, okay, your elbow needs to lead your wrist by just a little bit. It's really, um, I think kinesthetic awareness is really important, and we coach it out of people sometimes, so we can also coach people to really trust it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I like to do is just set them up for safety and then set them free.
Yeah, I love that.
And then lacrosse is very, whether set plays, majority of the sport is just organized chaos.
Yeah.
You're out athleted. Just, oh, the play did broke down, and then create. So last piece here is power output.
Um, Power output as a quality in swimming.
Yeah, something to look for an elite, or identify a limitation and then really hone in to have that play catch up for the rest of it.
Yeah, and I think as a strength coach, you know better than I do, the power output is the function of a lot of different things. Like it's hard to put power into a movement that's not coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
So you can maybe have the ability to put power into a like a single joint movement, but there's nothing in athletics that's single joint. And so the fluidity, athleticism, coordination has got to come first before we even talk about power. And then um, emotional, physical readiness is really important. The ability to apply power to the water is really important. I could put, a great 100-meter track sprinter in the water, and he or she would flail if they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a feel for how within a stroke to apply power. A lot of people try to overpower the beginning of a stroke, which is crazy. It's you're trying to take water that is not moving, and moving the water isn't the goal. The goal is to move your body over the water, like we were talking about earlier. So an immediate high application of power is just going to move water and rip your shoulder apart in a really vulnerable position. So it's important at the highest levels in sprints, but there's so much that comes before that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why it's five. Um, I guess in line with the social emotional characteristics, anything that's been consistent because you've had the opportunity to have many Olympians walk through your doors. Is there any theme or connection to the character, the social emotional readiness of those individuals, or even the accelerated growth as in respect to their character with their time with your teams?
I think it's not always in the moment they became Olympians, but in the moment that they actually see themselves as Olympians, there's an integration that happens, an integration of their their belief in themselves and the qualities that they called on to kind of demonstrate that belief. Um, and that's not the result of becoming an Olympian. It's kind of it goes hand in hand with it. I think I've had people come through these doors who are emotionally pretty volatile, and people who are just cool as can possibly be. But what they've learned is how to take their emotional strengths and find, it's almost like set the dials for themselves in the unique, like physiological arousal, mental arousal, emotional arousal, and be able to control those dials
Mm-hmm.
and to heading into a performance that allows them to reach their goals. And that's it's an ongoing process. There's never like you can't just set the dial and leave it there. And getting the dial to a certain place is a different challenge in different times of their life.
Mm-hmm.
But they have learned emotional control, which means some discipline, and it's always meant some internal work.
Yeah. Discipline goes a long way.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah, I'm exploring. That's what I'm speaking on tomorrow. That's why I'm in town for a presentation. My presentation is titled Punishment, Reframing Discipline at Practice. So helping coaches understand discipline is not punishment. It's not being this jerk that's trying to break it down. It's helping them understand this greater thing that it will carry over to college and beyond.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a way to create mental st- stability or focus in varying circumstances in really high pressure situations, whether it's the pressure of fatigue or the pressure of performance or the pressure of just competition. Um, I think being able to have some mental clarity and emotional control, like to me, that's discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of different ways that we can help create that will help them as parents. It'll help them in whatever their next step is, as friends, leaders. It's really that's exciting. You're talking about that.
It's gonna be a good one. And you get to do it every day here at practice, which is fun to see them rocking and rolling right here.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks for your time. Thanks for opening up your doors. I'm grateful, man. I'm glad we got to break bread a while back and then like stay connected here. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. It's awesome having a continuing relationship with you. I look forward to more.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
See.